Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I will start by saying welcome to Brooklyn, my home borough, and it's always fun to have events in, I like to call it the center of the world. So for those of you not from Brooklyn, sorry. And it's our eighth public hearing of the New York City Charter Review Commission. I'm Carlos Chasseur, Chair, and let me again say thank you for being here. Thanks to the Executive Director, General Counsel, and the entire team for making this process really good, and I thank you all. A couple of our commissioners have joined us today. Jackie Rowe Adams, thank you. Christopher Lynch, thank you. And I believe Kyle Bragg is on Zoom, so thank you. And actually, while I have you, why don't you give us a welcome? Christopher, start with you.
Good afternoon, Brooklyn. This is my home borough as
All right.
well.
I knew I liked you.
Brooklyn. So I'm super excited about being here this evening. Looking forward to the testimonies going to be presented to us this evening. Thank you for participating, and thank you.
Commissioner Rowe Adams.
Yes, good evening. First, let me say, I am proud of all of you that are here, and that's going to come tonight because you recognize how important it is for our city and our communities to know what's going on in their city, in their borough. So with that, I am so proud. And this is an education piece. Being on this charter, first of all, I'm proud to be a servant on the charter. And it has been a real education for me as well as you. And it better helps us decide and make the decisions along with you with all the things that you were saying to us. We hear you. And your testimony and you testifying has really, really helped us and helped me as a citizen and as a community person. It has helped me understand better where I'm living and how things happen and the concerns of the people. So I just need to let you know that, and I thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Bragg, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Well, it's great to be on with of my fellow citizens of New York, of Brooklyn, where I was born in Crown Heights. So I'm sorry that I could not be there in person because of conflicts. But I applaud all of you that are here today, both just to listen, but also to give testimony. We're trying to make our city better and provide government that works for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me thank Dr. Patricia Ramsey, President of Medgar Evers, for hosting us today. This is a gem of a school. I spent a lot of time here. It's really a wonderful place for all New Yorkers. So it's great to be back. So we are here to continue what I like to call the Charter Revision Citywide Listening Tour. It's not as sexy as MWBE, Mike, but CRCCLT. Somebody write that down so we remember it. We've traveled to all 5 boroughs multiple times. We've heard suggestions from elected officials, community leaders, members of the public, and experts on how we can change our charter to improve the lives of all New Yorkers. Our charter, for those of you that don't know, is like a constitution. It is the Constitution for New York City. It impacts our daily lives in many ways, from public safety to sanitation and everything in between. This is why it's important to hear from all of you. And what will happen is we hear testimony, we consider ideas, and then we will come up with a report that will hopefully make some changes and create some good questions for the ballot, and then New Yorkers will vote on November 5th. If you have not looked and read our preliminary report, I encourage you to do that. recommendations in there. I'm just going to borrow this 1 second. The report, which is going to be on is that right? July 22nd. So July 22nd, we have a public hearing in Queens, and our final hearing will be July 25th in Brooklyn. Check out our website. It's got all the information, www.nyc.gov/charter, and you can submit testimony and comments in writing to charter@citycharter.nyc.gov between now and July 12th. Let me begin with public testimony. I'm going to call up Michael Garner, New York City Chief Business Diversity Officer, to start. Michael, thank you for coming out again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. I'm happy to once again testify on the importance of the City of New York creating a MWBE agency. The advantages will be more focus, more cost-effective, more centralized in driving the City of New York's and Mayor Adams' MWBE goals. And quite frankly, the mayor has done everything that he said he was going to do on the campaign trail with regard to creating equity in communities of color, awarding contracts not only in a cost-effective manner because it's taxpayers' dollars being spent, but also in an inclusive manner, and making sure that for the first time that the City of New York is going to lead the nation in creating the most effective MWBE programming. And why is that important? It's important because taxpayers' dollars, like I said, should be spent cost effectively, but inclusively. For far too long, emerging and smaller minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses have had a difficult time in ascertaining government contracts. They pay taxes, but yet they cannot have access to the government contracts. And it's important for us that we drive equity in creating opportunities for those business owners to purchase homes, to create jobs in those communities, to afford better healthcare option and educational opportunities for their respective families. And so this recommendation of creating a citywide agency is going to eradicate the overlap that currently exists in 3 different agencies and offices, more focus, more cost-effective, and once again, driving the results of Mayor Adams, which his goals are simple. By the year 2026, the City of New York will award not less than $25 billion to minority women-owned businesses. And by the year 2030, that number increases to $60 billion. And last year, the City of New York awarded $6.3 billion to minority-owned firms and women-owned firms last year. There's no other government entity or private sector corporation that has achieved $6.3 billion in contract awards in 1 year to minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses. And so we encourage and we ask for your support in fulfilling the goals of Mayor Adams and the MWBE community in the City of New York, the largest, most diverse city in the nation, to approve and bring this to the ballot in November so that the people of the City of New York can vote on this very important initiative of creating a single place where MWBE will be driven and giving us the ability to be held accountable from transparency and accountability, and so that the City of New York will work for all of its citizens and all of its businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Do you have a proposed name for the agency?
Not yet.
Okay.
But we will come up with a very effective name for this revolutionary initiative.
And do you envision it being like basically a city agency, an SBS, so whatever the agencies are in New York City,
Yes.
This would be a new one.
Absolutely. And it would focus on MWBE,
Yep,
but it would report into City Hall. It would report into me and to the first deputy mayor and to the mayor himself.
Great. questions from our panel or comments?
So we'll have the same hierarchy like all the other city agencies with the commissioner and.
Yes, a commissioner, a general counsel, procurement operation, and a MWBE contract compliance focus, and a section in there that will come up with innovative solutions. Like when the mayor went to Albany and got all of his MWBE bills passed, and now we are creating innovative programming to allow the city of New York to award contracts in a more inclusive manner.
Great.
So, first of all, I love your testimony, and I thank you. And it's very important. It's a very important message, and it's very important for us as a commission to hear that. The question is, how many MWBEs
Got
are
it.
there?
She's
I've been practicing. I've been practicing.
Absolutely.
So how many, just right off your head that you know, is actually active or happening or that y'all have created?
Yes. So you know,
I'm not gonna say since you started, but I'm gonna say, just give a little ball figure.
yes. So there are 11,500 certified MWBE companies in the city of New York. Your question is an on-point question. Out of the 11,500 firms that we have certified, about 1,600 have won contracts at a prime level or are working as subcontractors and subconsultants. And so it's one thing to certify companies. It's a different thing to engage them in procurement opportunities where they start winning contracts. And so that number is increasing since Mayor Adams's first day. More MWBEs are getting contracts. But the question is not how many firms you have certified, but how many of those firms are getting business. And with a centralized focus, once again, of an MWBE agencies holding the other agencies accountable for how they award contracts to be more inclusive, that's the reason why we need this agency to be approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It sounds like an agency whose time has come, to be quite honest.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Great. Let me welcome Reverend Daughtry. Thank you for being here, sir. All right. Thank you,
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Gardner.
you.
Thank you. I'm going to call up Anna Diaz and Robert Holbrook to come on up. And if you could just state your name and if you're representing an entity or a firm.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rob Holbrook. I do not live in Brooklyn, but
You wish you did.
I'm a member of the Mayor's Office of Policy and Planning, where I serve as the Executive Director of Get Stuff Built initiative. In 2022, the Mayor released the Get Stuff Built report identifying policy recommendations aimed at streamlining the building approval and permitting process by cutting red tape and streamlining the city's construction approval and permit administration process. Tonight, I would like to speak in support of one of those recommendations from the Get Stuff Built report related to the permitting activities at our waterfront. New York City has over 520 miles of waterfront that play a vital role to all New Yorkers in ways that may not be obvious. A more efficient administration of construction and occupancy of our waterfront benefits a wide range of everyday New Yorkers. Many private property owners must maintain their shoreline bulkheads and structures that protect their upland property and those behind them from coastal waters. In addition to private property interests, the public use of our waterfront is vast. Our working waterfront moves critical goods and supplies over our many wharfs and piers. The waterfront provides an important transportation option to many New Yorkers and tourists via our ferry landings and ship terminals. Public access to the waterfront through Parks Department facilities and public waterfront access areas provides New Yorkers a recreational opportunity that is the best in the world. Finally, many of our agencies and utilities have vital facilities at the waterfront. If you live or work in New York City, your garbage, sanitary waste, stormwater runoff, road asphalt, and energy supply either traveled through a waterfront facility or was created and stored at one. And that facility must be maintained. As we've learned at great cost, climate change has made shoreline storm protection at our waterfront an imperative The sea level rise increases the risk of storm surge in frequency and intensity of storm activities, degrades and undermines the integrity of our existing shore protections. Ironically, the successes of our environmental protection work to improve the water quality in New York Harbor over the last 50 years has also accelerated the decay of many of these in-water structures in our built environment. As our harbor's water quality has improved, the native animals that feed on those wooden piers and bulkheads have also returned to happily eat away the waterfront built structures, shortening their already limited lifespan. All of this highlights the need for an efficient system to administer construction permits, which is not what we have. A customer must go to two different agencies, one to receive a permit for a bulkhead structure or pier at the water's edge, and a separate permitting agency for the building that sits above it. That makes no sense and is an archaic vestige handed down from the changes of agency jurisdiction that no longer exist. I support, as recommended in the Get Stuff Built report and as mentioned in the Commission's preliminary staff report, combining the waterfront permitting function of the Department of Small Business Services, which issues these permits today, with the functions of the Department of Buildings to provide a consistent and comprehensive administration oversight by the Department of Buildings. This change will provide a better customer experience and a more efficient use of agency resources. The waterfront permitting process would have access to the much more significant information technology system at DOB, access to their robust and experienced team of field staff, and reduce redundancies between agency staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments or questions? I could tell you that in my in my current role and in my last two roles, which were president of the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce and chief of staff to Borough President Marty Markowitz, we never understood why SBS had waterfront permitting. And I have asked many people and no one has ever been able to figure out. So I think you're right. In agency changes over the decades, it just probably was not a big issue and got lost in the shuffle. So appreciate you bringing it up. I know it's not, doesn't sound sexy, but it actually affects a lot of folks. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Good afternoon, all on the panel, and thank you for having me.
Just bring the mic a little closer to you.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
It's better. Today, I'm here on behalf of pushing this initiative by Mike Gardner and the mayor. I believe it's extremely important. My name is Anna Diaz. I am the president of Diaz Electric, an MWBE electrical contracting company based in Brooklyn. We love Brooklyn. We do most of our jobs in Brooklyn. But mostly, I like to talk about our journey and how we got here and how am I sitting here. Diaz Electric has been in business now for over 12 years. As I reflected on our journey, I realized someone posed the question to me over 12 years ago. How does a construction company become successful in New York City, especially a woman-owned company? Great question. So 12 years ago, I Googled that question, and I actually came up with a Forbes magazine article that gave me the steps. It had many steps in that article, but the one important step it had in the article was find a mentorship program. Ironically enough, I Googled that, and sure enough, there it was. School Construction Authority Mentorship Program, MTA Mentorship Program. Well, at the time, Diaz Electric wasn't really even born yet. I couldn't qualify for either or. I had to build up the company resume. And unfortunately for the city of New York, but fortunately for Diaz Electric, Hurricane Sandy happened. And yes, I received my license in 2012. And there it was. We worked through the city's path of Build It Back and did many homes to recover in the Rockaways. We quickly applied for our MWBE certification because that was one of the steps in the Forbes magazine. We quickly achieved that. They fast-tracked it. We continued to work and build up our resume until we met the requirements for those two mentorship programs. Unfortunately, we only met the requirements. We were only able to make the requirements for the School Construction Authority. And our goal was to be in the MTA mentorship program. But not to say anything for anything, but it was a godsend for us. We entered the School Construction Authority, and from there, we were able to become equipped to work in other mentorship programs. And yes, 2 years later, we were in the MTA mentorship program doing well. If it wasn't for these programs itself directed for minorities and being targeted for our companies, I don't know where Diaz Electric would have been. It would have been extremely rough. Throughout this time, I'd like to quickly tell you, although we've been in business for 12 years now, half of that time has been through the both mentorship programs, gaining contracts from city agencies. Through that time, we've won, this is still counting, 43 SEA projects, and we've won and worked on 12 MTA projects. What does this mean? In that time, we've gained, when Diaz Electric first opened up with $250, we've done over $10 million worth of work till this date. And that's just school construction authority work. I'd like to say how important this agency is because as my company has grown, we have been able to serve the community, have our team members, our electricians and office members purchase homes, send kids to private school. Not only that, we're looking to go into the energy sectors. And so we keep building and growing and learning. We're at the level where when these programs are over for contractors that have what they call topped out, it's time for us to move on. Companies can see us in this agency that we're proposing. They could see our capacity, they could see our experience, and they could see what we've created in the community. We'd like to thank you for this time. I'd like to thank you all for hearing my story. I will be submitting it online in much more detail because there's more detail.
Thank you.
But
Thank you
I'd
very
like to
much.
say thank you so much, and I appreciate you.
Great, thank you. Any
Thank you.
comments or questions? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me welcome Barbara Blair and Daniel Gallagher. Barbara, it's nice to see you in my borough. I generally never, I know that's true, that's true. Michael, before you head out, I just had one question that just hit me. Do you envision this new agency taking over the certification of firms, or will that still be done separately? Got it. Perfect, thank you. Okay, Barbara, and then Daniel.
Thank you, Chair. This is Sarah. I always think I'll pronounce
Just
that.
Barbara, speak into the mic.
Okay. Thank you, Chair and committee members, Commission, for having me here today. My name is Barbara Blair, President of the Garment District Alliance and a resident of Brooklyn. Although I previously addressed the Commission on June 13th, I feel compelled to reiterate my primary concern about establishing a framework of enforcement for fair share principles. The current charter includes a statement about fair share, the equal distribution of desirable assets and challenging facilities throughout the city. Despite the enormous impact of these operations on our communities, there is no requirement that the city has centralized oversight over fair share compliance, criteria, or concentration. Additionally, although the charter mentions city facilities as included in fair share, it does not include private facilities that are contracted by the city, such as shelters, harm reduction, and other uses. As such, facilities are being placed without regard to the totality of circumstances. The Garment District of Manhattan is an example of how the lack of fair share guidelines can adversely affect an area. Midtown has a dense and diverse population, including office, retail, manufacturing, residential, hotels, transportation hubs, a sports arena, and tourist attractions. All this is intertwined with a myriad of public and private shelters, supportive housing, agencies, and other social service providers. The fact that many of these are not city-operated, but funded by a variety of city, state, and private sources means they are not considered when a new facility is proposed. The importance of the City Charter Revision Committee in addressing this topic cannot be overstated. Fair share is a citywide concept, and if left to the city council to formulate the regulations, it will be compromised by the competing NIMBY interests of local neighborhoods. Only the Charter Revision Commission can ensure a public process with tracking and transparency and a required analysis of the neighborhood impact to close a loophole that requires nonprofits contracted to perform city services be included and counted as a city facility. Finally, an agency proposing a siting should be required to demonstrate that the facility serves the needs of the population in the immediate geographic community, except where that need was created by the unfair overconcentration of similar existing facilities by the city and state. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
And I've just asked our general counsel to look into this a little bit further.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks,
Really.
sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Daniel Gollier. I'm the founder of the Civic and Governmental School Maximum New York. My students include city and state employees, software engineers, lawyers, and a widely variable cross-section of New York City. It is from this perspective, teaching government and law, as well as my own participation in these fields, that I offer this suggestion to the Commission for its consideration. Change the title of the city's comptroller to the Chief Financial Officer, or CFO. While this suggested change might seem trivial to some, it would serve the interests of a free and democratic electorate as well as the city. It also fits the spirit of the modernization section of this commission's preliminary report. Why? Because almost no one in New York City, resident or voter, knows what comptroller means. It is an archaic term. While they do not understand the manifold audit and control functions the office performs, this is understandable and arguably not their job. The actual problem is that they don't even vaguely understand what the office does, which means they can't do their job of effective voting, among other things. Multiple TV shows rely on the oddly specific fact of comptroller inscrutability for jokes. My own personal media consumption has highlighted this in season 2 of NBC's Superstore and season 3 of HBO's Sex and the City. I will note that, even as I type this testimony, Google Docs underlines the word comptroller as a misspelling and suggests the alternative of controller, which was the original name of the office in the 1898 Consolidation Charter before it was altered in the 1901 Charter. Comptroller inscrutability means that the general public cannot possibly vote for the office in anything resembling good faith. This is quite distinct from something like the mayoral race. While citizens will again not know the full description, the job description of the mayor, they directionally understand that the mayor operates as an executive and is in charge of getting things done. If the comptroller were the CFO, citizens would directionally understand that the office was in charge of overseeing the city's money, and that itself is already a huge leap in understanding. Changing the name of the comptroller to Chief Financial Officer serves the interest of voter education and electoral legitimacy, and would do more for these causes than millions spent in any kind of broader citizen education effort. It is, in fact, how many in the civic sphere already explain what the comptroller does. They say it's New York City's Chief Financial Officer, and this includes the comptroller's own website. On the candidate side of the equation, the title Chief Financial Officer of New York City is a little bit more compelling than comptroller and would change the rhetorical and competitive landscape of comptroller elections. People would be more inclined to vote for the office on the basis of sound financial experience and competency in money management, and prospective candidates in the worlds of accounting, banking, and finance would be more compelled to run. This suggestion is not without precedent. In 1993, in the wake of the Board of Estimates dissolution, the City Council passed Local Law 19, which changed the name of the President of the City Council to the Public Advocate. Legislative testimony in favor of this law highlighted the confusing nature of the council president's title and the need to clarify its role relative to the Speaker of the Council. Although there are obvious considerations when changing the name of a principal city office in the law, including the many references to it in state law, I urge the Commission to study this potential charter change as expeditiously as possible, with an eye to implementing it in time for the city's 2025 election. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Wasn't Carrie dating the guy running for comptroller that year?
Yes, she was.
Okay.
Mhm.
I got my Sex in the City right.
Yes. but
Okay.
It didn't go well.
Let me, before I ask questions, Commissioner Ken Nye has also joined us via Zoom. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. It's my honor to welcome, I like to call her my leader, but she is the chair of the Kings County Democratic Committee. She is an assembly member representing parts of Central Brooklyn. She is a proud mom a recent law school graduate. Rodney's, I can go on about you all night. I like to call her my sister, but let me welcome Assemblymember Rodney's Bichot to the table.
Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you,
Cicero.
Chair, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here on this nice, hot day. But I'm happy that you all are doing this in Brooklyn. So I certainly want to thank you and the whole commission for doing this. This is a very, very, very important thing that we need as we talk about equity, inclusion, and you heard from our Chief Diversity Officer, Mike Garner. This is something that we've been fighting for a very long time, as many of you know. And Chair Cicero, we worked on a number of initiatives in terms of promoting MWBE. I first want to say, just give a little bit of historical background on all of this, and get you a sense of where we came from and where we're now. As you know, all of this in terms of the MWBE program started with the landmark case of City of Richmond versus Croson, which was an constitutional, equal protection, strict scrutiny decision that was made by the Supreme Court that said, in order for us to have a program, race-based program, gender-based program, we have to show quantifiable and verifiable data to show that there is consistent disparities. Well, and then that decision allowed all the local entities like New York City to have disparity programs to show that data. Because you have to show that data, and when you have that data, you create a program that's narrowly tailored. We want to make sure we protect this program. Okay, there's a lot that's going on in our Supreme Court where they're dismantling things and rights that we've fought for. And so we want to make sure that we secure this, and having an MWBE agency will help secure that. It will help continue to get those data. It will help continue to provide the resources and show why we need to continuously have this program. And I don't know how long it will take for us to get to where we need to as it relates to equity. Again, we know that the city of New York has a population of more than 60% of minority and women residents. Yet the percentage of participants as it relates to procurement and contract, I want to say is still in the one digit, okay, less than 5%. That's billions of dollars that's being procured. And it's been very difficult to try to reach those margins. After the landmark case in 1988, 1999, the state of New York had established their Article 15A. New York City had started their Department of Financial Opportunity in 1991. In 1992, Dinkins administration expanded with the disparity study, and then it was dismantled in 1994 under Rudy Giuliani. Then in 2004, Michael Bloomberg, mayor then, reestablished a disparity study and then adopted some goals in 2005. Then in 2010, under Governor David Patterson, the Article 15A was enhanced tremendously, allowing us to pass a number of bills. And I would say under Mayor Adams, we have passed the largest number of bills as it relates to MWBE, which is why we need those agencies. And I want to thank our Chief Diversity Officer for paving that way and helping that happen. Never in history did we pass bills like increasing a threshold to 1.5 million. When I started as a chair of the MWBE, we had a discretionary of 20,000. Now it's 1.5 million, allowing minorities and women business enterprise not having to compete against these big firms, but compete amongst themselves and get an opportunity to 1.5. We also passed the city bill to introduce a citywide mentorship program. And I tell you, the mentorship program is going to be huge. You can't do this without an agency. It's just too massive. That means that we're going to implement, the mayor and the chief diversity officer, Garner, going to implement a program in each agency that's like Department of Education, Parks, Department of Transportation, each and every one of these, and we did one for DDC, just like CSA, School Construction Authority, will have an opportunity to build a capacity program for our MWBEs. And we cannot do that without an MWBE agency. Now, I'm not going to read my whole testimony. I just want to say that one of the reasons why I think establishing this agency is also for oversight. I know we have the commissioner, the controller's office that does some level of oversight, like, the grading policy, but it's not enough. It's just not enough. I think the MWBE agency would be a great way and a great agency to do the reporting and grading of all agencies, both on awards and actual spending. It will be able to monitor and manage the mentorship program throughout the city. It would streamline and help outreach and certification programs. As you heard, the city of New York has about 11,000 certified. Only about 1,600 were able, and that's a big jump from where it was before. We're able to get contract, but we want to get the 11,000 to get contract. We also want to make sure that we have an alternative financing arm. As you know, minority business enterprise especially has been definitely excluded from the getting access to capital for a very long time. So traditional banks just don't want to lend to minority-owned businesses. And so this will be a way of housing a financing arm like the Housing Development Corporation for when we're building in New York City. So we'll have one for these MWBEs, things like working capital, bridge loans, and monies for bonding and things of that nature. And talks about unbundling contracts is very important. And just so many other things. I'm not going to read everything. I just want to say that this is a great opportunity for a very long time. And I think New York City has been at the forefront in terms of increasing the goals. We have paved the way for all of the cities across the United States. And this is another opportunity for us to serve as an example. So with that said, I am, as the Assemblywoman, as the chair of the Minority Women Business Enterprise Subcommittee for the state of New York, because I do represent the state of New York and all the people in the state of New York as it relates to MWBE. We are 100% in pushing this and supporting this. One more thing I want to add is also the workforce, to implementing more workforce goals. Our last disparity study showed that we don't have enough minorities and we don't have enough women who are working in the construction field in particular. And so again, another arm to make sure that there's more equity in hiring more women and more minorities in contracting opportunities.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And really thank you for, not just when you were in the Assembly, but many years of advocacy on this issue. Comments?
Yes.
Comments or questions?
Hi, I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you.
And so you said that, first of all, let me thank the mayor for really pushing this and giving Michael Gardner, I can't say enough about him being in the position and now learning about you. I'm learning so much. I'm getting education. But you said you were pushing it and y'all were reaching out. What kind of outreach and that you're doing with the the MWBEs?
Well, so I've been in this role for almost 10 years. And over the past years, we've passed legislation to allow breaking some of those barriers. So, I have a newsletter. I consistently stay in touch with a lot of MWBEs as well as agencies. Whatever opportunities that are out there, we try to promote it, at least through my channel. But we do have a number of forums. We have a MWBE Advocacy Day in Albany, where we invite people to come up to Albany and advocate for a lot of the legislation pertaining to MWBEs. And that's what we did this year. We did it last year. Last year, I think we had a record number of 10 MWBE bills that passed, which is why we're in this position, right? Now we need to move forward with implementing these things like the mentorship program, which is a very massive initiative, which will allow all of these mayoral agencies to have a program that would invite MWBEs to learn for a year or two. And after learning, they graduate from the program and they become part of a pre-qualified list so that they can work directly with the agencies. And that's what we want to do. We want to provide capacity and resources and experience, because very often our prime contractors are complaining that there's not enough MWBE who can either have the capacity, or they just can't find anyone who can do that specialized work. Which is why we want to make sure that under this agency, we look at policies like unbundling. Sometimes I can tell you that there was a recent project in my community, which was the Shirley Chisholm Recreational Center, which is still being built. And it's a $141 million contract. We were quite disappointed at the fact that the leading contractor was not an MBE. And it is in a predominantly Black community. It was fought by Public Advocate Jumani Williams, Councilmember Farrah Lewis, and myself. And we felt that, and the community felt that the reflection of the people who were managing the project was not a reflection of our community. We don't want that. If we're fighting for resources for our community, we certainly want to make sure that the people, especially the local people, are participating. It's about building wealth. It's about job creation. It's about economic equity. So we certainly want to see the future projects to be a lot more inclusive, a lot more opportunities that would help a lot of these vulnerable communities who's been systematically excluded from economic opportunities for a very long time.
I have one more question.
Yeah, please.
I know your work, really good work, and I know that you're definitely an advocate for the youth, for the young people, and also Michael. Is it an age cap? Is it an age?
Well, yeah.
A certain age that you have to reach out to or to educate, or when do you start, what age?
We can start right out of high school or during high school. I mean, I think there are programs in place that the mayor, the chancellor that are implementing so that students can be aware and be prepared for the workplace. And so we with internship, I know it's a school construction authority. I would say they're a very good model, I think that's where our chief diversity officer who implemented the minority program, mentorship program, but I participate in their high school program where the students go out, the intern, they get to learn a little bit about the construction world, and it gives them an opportunity to think about what they want to do. Some of them are hired right after high school. Some of them are hired after college. But again, we start the programs in the school so that they are prepared.
Thank you. Yes, and then I know Kyle Bragg, you have your hand up to ask a question as well.
Madam Chair, thank you again for that testimony. It was very insightful for us. So I just want to, in conjunction with Ms. Diaz's testimony as well, she had mentioned about the mentorship program. So was that mentorship program a barrier for you to get certified? Was it a requirement to get certified? And then she only mentioned that it was like 2 agencies that were available.
So it's not about that. So the certification program is a complete thing of itself. It's a complete process of itself. You go through the small business services and they help you get certified. Once you're certified, you're on a list, a certified list where all the agencies across the city of New York can solicit for work, for bids and things of that nature. The mentorship program is a separate entity for the purpose of taking some of those people who are on the list to train them, to better prepare them, and build capacity to work with that particular agency. For example, School Construction Authority and I think DDC are the only 2 city agencies that have the program right now. And MTA is the only state program that has the mentorship program. You have a number of MWBEs who come in for 2 years. They go through a training meaning they get to know how to estimate, bid. Many of them learn how to get unionized, how to operate their business, but also for whatever technical part that they're interested, whether it's electrician, whether it's painting, whatever it is, they will get to work on how that particular agency does business. Schools obviously is very different from construction of a office building or residential or hospitals. School is a very particular niche. So if you're going to go through that program, you're going to learn how to participate in building schools. But those skills are transferable, okay? Because once you have experience in working in an agency, like the School Construction Authority, many of them are transferable to working with hospitals or working with other type of big things that the city procure for, paving, paving the ground, streets, things of that nature. So it's just a good experience. And once you get certified, the sky's the limit.
Okay, thank you so much.
And I will say that what's good about the program is that you are kind of guaranteed in a sense to have some type of work with that agency. And then you can even go to the second program, it's called a graduate program, where you can earn a higher contract. And I think the SCA, I don't keep up with it, but I think, let's say the undergraduate program is about $1 million worth of contract, and maybe the graduate program is about $3 million worth of contract. But that's good because you'll have experience in terms of attaining insurance, bonding, and all of that stuff in preparation for your next bid or your next business opportunity.
So it's a preparation vehicle for them.
Exactly.
Kyle Bragg. And I think Michael wants to add something.
There we go.
I was
Thank
going
you.
to say, you should have just sat up there, Mike.
So, thank you to the brilliant Assemblywoman for her testimony. I apologize again to you for not being there in person. I learned yesterday, and actually having experience and knowing so many MWBE contractors and service contractors, there's something that came up yesterday that I think is very important that I didn't hear tonight, and that's the expediting of payment. Because these MWBEs are challenged with making payroll and other expenses, and then being forced to go to banks at high interest rates, which eats into their profitability. And I think the centralization of this work with MWBEs, as I heard last night, would be another great value added here. And I didn't hear it mentioned tonight, but I just wanted to make sure that people understood that as well, that through what's being proposed, they have a much better opportunity to expedite payments to MWBEs, who sometimes wait long periods of time and again are forced to go to banks at high interest rates. So thank you again, Assemblywoman Bichette, for your testimony.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bragg.
And let me just add to that. Because both at the School Construction Authority and at the MTA and the mentor program, what we did was that we drafted policies for both of those mentor programs, which mandated that when a contractor submit an invoice, it's required for the agency to pay them in 10 days. And that's written policy. And so those two agencies have that written policy. Once we get an invoice, the invoice is correct, we pay the contractor in 10 days. Now, here's the beauty of the mentor program. And my assembly lady here is being too modest, because the reason why the mayor was able to get all of his MWB bills passed up in Albany was because of the assembly lady.
I concur.
State Senator Comrie, State Senator Parker, and State Senator James Sanders, who is her co-chair of the MWB committee in the state Senate and the state assembly. And so with the $1.5 million discretionary, the speaker had to call a special session in order to get these bills passed. The $1.5 million discretionary, the assembly lady stood on the floor for 1 hour on the last day of session and got that bill passed for the Adams administration. Now, the mentor program that she is referring to, one of the bills that they got passed, what's going to happen is that we're going to take 10 New York City construction agencies, put them under one umbrella, and this centralized construction mentoring program that is working effectively at the MTA and at the STA will now be implemented at the City of New York. And here's the beauty of this, right? The contracts that will be awarded out of this program will be prime construction contracts. And so these MWBE firms who win a contract, they will get the award directly from the agency. No longer are they working for a large construction organization as a subcontractor. They're working as a prime contractor for the City of New York, for the School Construction Authority, for the MTA. And so now they are in control of their own destiny. And I just came back because I have to personally thank the assembly lady for her hard work in Albany and getting these bills passed and giving us the opportunity now to drive equity and to treat our MWBEs the way that they should be treated, by paying them on time and creating an environment that's conducive to their growth and development.
I will say, and I personally agree with everything you both have said. It may not sound like a big deal, but to be a prime on a contract like the Shirley Chisholm recreational facility or the Obama Library in Chicago, as opposed to being a sub, is a difference between, X amount or 30% max. And putting money aside, it's hard to put money aside, but putting money aside for a minute, it also changes the trajectory, I believe, of your construction, engineering, architecture firm, as then you start looking for larger projects going forward. So
you just heard from
it's a big deal.
You just heard from the DS Electric. I mean, given her the ability to work as a prime at the SCA and at the MTA, it's a game changer.
Agreed.
And she didn't mention how many employees she started out with and how many she ended up with. She did mention that she started her company with $250.
Agreed.
And she's now doing $10 million worth of work because we created an opportunity and an avenue for her to enter the construction industry.
Great.
Good. Thank you for the
Okay.
work y'all
Thank
did.
you very much.
Thank you.
Just 2 questions.
And no, those are people I signed up for testifying.
Great, thank you.
Thank you both. Appreciate you.
Just want to thank you again, and I will put my law degree into good use. I had the opportunity of working with 2 fine firms, Picard, Abramson, and Zetlin and Dekaria. And these are two firms, again, that gave me the opportunity to understand the construction field, the architect and the engineering field, and I'm just very grateful of that. And so even though I have my law degree, I will continue to be a public servant, but maybe help legally
Yes.
on the construction and engineering architect side. So I want to
Assembly
thank you,
member, thank
Chair,
you.
and I thank all of you for giving me this opportunity. It's a
Thank you
pleasure.
very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
This was a really great discussion, by the way,
Absolutely.
very, very needed. Let me call up Kwame Amoku and Carl Henry Cesar. Did I say your last name right?
But yeah, you did.
I did. Okay, good.
Kwame Amoku. Thank you, commissioners. I appreciate you having me here today. I'm from Flatbush, so I appreciate this being in Brooklyn. My name is Kwame Amoku, Kwameamoaku. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Film Office, a division of the Mayor's Office of Media Entertainment, also known as MOME. The Mayor's Office of Media Entertainment urges the Charter Review Commission to consider a proposal to amend the New York City Charter to give MOME direct authority to issue film permits. It is important that film permitting process be as efficient as possible because film and television is an important part of New York's economy. Film and television production supports approximately 185,000 jobs, 18.1 billion in total wages, and 81.6 billion in total economic output. In most recent years, MOME issues over 11,000 filming permits annually. So that productions can shoot on city property like streets and sidewalks. Currently, Charter Section 13011R provides that the New York City Department of Small Business Services has the authority to issue film permits. This arrangement dates back to 1947, where the Commissioner of Commerce and the city's coordinator of motion pictures were both the same person. Back in the 1940s, as the medium of television was just starting to catch on, the city issued a relatively small amount of permits for filming. Over the decades, the scope and size of MOME's work has expanded, but the legal permitting authority has not changed along with it. Consequently, the MOME commissioner must be an SBS employee simply to maintain jurisdiction over film permitting. But the other MOME staff and our employees of the Office of Technology and Innovation do largely to our television and radio operations. This isn't a trivial issue. Charter Section 13011R has the potential to create problems during mayoral transitions where there may be a period without a commissioner. Also, it's inconsistent with the sections of the administrative code that refer to film permits issued by MOME. Providing MOME with direct authority to issue permits would allow MOME to seamlessly continue operations during times of transition, and it would update the charter to accurately affect the agency that issues film permits. We urge you to consider this change to the charter.
Thank you very much. It's hearing about your issue and then waterfront. There must have been somebody in an agency at one point who just said, put everything at SBS and we'll figure it out someday, right? And so
It sounded good in the
it
words at the
sounded
time.
good, but now
Right.
but it needs a little cleanup. By the way, I like to call Flatbush the heart of New York City, so
I agree.
it's good to see a Flatbush guy here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions, by the way? Comments?
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
So folks, good evening. Folks can hear me all right, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for giving me the chance to testify. My name is Carl Henry Cesar, and I've lived in Flatbush for just over a decade. And so I am here to respectfully testify against this specific Charter Revision Commission because I find the community engagement process has been disrespectful, and I believe that the premise is flawed. And so the reason why I'm saying I think the engagement process is disrespectful is because 2.5 months is not enough time to collaboratively collect feedback from the 8 million citizens of New York through 14 public hearings and writing written testimony. Personally, having gone through the City of Yes zoning text amendments, I feel that this process of engagement feels as disrespectful as that engagement process has been. Secondly, I believe the premise of this specific commission is flawed because I believe that recommendations made without people to guide, implement, and enforce them are empty. And I believe that the city does not have enough employees to do that work right now. So I'm looking specifically at a report by the state comptroller from May of this year that said that New York City is projected to end June of this year with just over 283,000 full-time employees, which is a 2,000 employee increase from last June. So that's great. But the same report also notes that that's still about 5% less than the pre-pandemic levels around June 2020 of about 300,446 full-time employees. And the same report also notes that the staffing is still uneven across city agencies. For example, the report notes that the Department of Buildings turnover has increased just over 68% compared to its pre-pandemic average of vacancies. So given that data point, I do have concerns about the recommendation of merging waterfront permitting from the Department of Small Business Services to Department of Buildings, because my question is, are there enough people to actually do that work? And so, in my opinion, has the Department of Buildings and every other city agency proven that every single day they are giving New York City residents the highest quality of service? That answer is no. Every day, are there city employees who are breaking their backs to deliver the best service? Yes, there are. Does the city need to improve its service and its delivery and quality to the people of New York City? Yes, it does. But me personally, I do not believe this Charter Revision Commission is the right solution at that time to do so. Instead, what I believe the city should be doing to get at that right now, I believe it should be trying to get its staffing back to the pre-pandemic levels around June 2020. They should pay the employees. They should give them professional development, and they should do true community engagement. And they could see what a respected, motivated, and empowered workforce in tangent with an engaged community could do. And in my opinion, if after that's done, we are still not getting the outcomes that we desire, then it makes sense to have a Charter Revision Commission, because at that point, the question of the quality of the people doing the work has been spoken for. It's now a question of the processes in which they're working. And so I'm not against Charter Revision Commissions, but these are the two reasons why I'm specifically against the formation of this commission. So thank you for taking the time to hear my testimony.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jared Rauch and Andrea Biro. Did I say your last name right?
Yes, you did.
All right, good.
All right. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you. I'm here to voice my strong support for the essential reforms aimed at clarifying and expanding the Department of Sanitation's jurisdiction and responsibilities as detailed in the preliminary report. Over the past 2 decades, New York City has made significant strides in enhancing the cleanliness of our public spaces. This progress has reached new heights with the Adams administration's introduction of trash containerization in various parts of the city. The preliminary report highlights the need for a mandate on containerized refuse, noting that DSNY's current mandate in the charter does not fully address this. Currently, DSNY's authority is limited and does not cover all city properties, including medians and the perimeters of properties. This gap can hinder efforts to keep our city clean. By broadening DSNY's jurisdiction, we can significantly improve our city's cleanliness. New Yorkers have expressed a strong desire for cleaner streets and better solutions than the current practice of placing garbage bags on the sidewalk. Updating the charter to clearly define and expand the Department of Sanitation's responsibilities when it comes to this will help us meet the expectations of all New Yorkers and maintain a cleaner city. My great uncle was the deputy commissioner in the Department of Sanitation in the early 20th century. And the stories I hear from him compared to what I see today, it's like night and day, and it's great progress, and we need to continue that progress. It's crucial to build on that progress and enhance the effectiveness of the Department of Sanitation. Clearly, over the past 20 years, DSNY has consistently demonstrated its ability to make visible, meaningful improvements for everyday New Yorkers. Extending its jurisdiction and enforcement capabilities will enable the agency to continue this important work and improve the quality of life in our city. Thank you for your attention and your consideration.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
No, thank you.
I think that's another loophole that people can't understand
Yeah.
why Department of Sanitation can't do this while they're not authorized to.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Andrea Biro.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Biro. I'm originally from Bushwick, now a resident of Coney Island. There's a couple of provisions that I would like to address in the charter report. One of them is the public safety aspect of it. My suggestion is that we remove the sheriff from the Department of Finance and actually restore our original law enforcement. Because right now, the biggest lie New York City, the men and women of New York City are being told is that we have law enforcement. We don't. We have policy enforcers under the guidelines of Corporation Council. That's what we have. If we actually had law enforcement, we would never had stop and frisk. We never would have had the mass mandates turn into a stop and frisk, especially in minority neighborhoods, and then have Corporation Council turn away from their own policy. We do not have any form of law enforcement in New York City at all. If we actually had law enforcement, most of the politicians would probably end up in jail at this point. But we actually need law enforcement that caters to the men and women, the way that they were originally designed before the Greater New York City was created. When the sheriffs of New York City actually catered to the men and women when they brought their complaints to them. There was an independent investigation and the claims had to be backed up by facts. You couldn't just go and make a false claim. You actually had to prove your claim. That's how law works. This is not what's happening in New York City. That's one that I would like to suggest. Because as of right now, with our New York City sheriffs that are under Department of Finance, we have glorified tax collectors. That's what they do. They go out and collect what is owed to the New York City Corporation, not to enforce what is needed to the public. Everybody relies on NYPD. NYPD enforces policy. We have our city council members writing legislation under the guise of law that has been reviewed and approved by Corporation Council. Why are lawyers a separate agency that is designed to protect the public servants as well as the agencies of this corporation reviewing what is being submitted by those we employ and have elected? We can't have that anymore. We need enforcement, and it has to come from a separate department that answers to the men and women, not to lawyers. That's one aspect. The second one is the surety bonds. Do not do away with them. If we do in any way, even in a small amount, contemplate the idea of changing the comptroller to CFO, it's even more a reason to have a surety bond. The surety bond is nothing more than an insurance policy that says that if that elected official or appointed official with an oath of office does something outside of the scope of his duties that is in the charter and the constitutions that they took an oath to, they're covered to then basically pay retribution or and this way we don't need the money from the city purse. If every elected and appointed official had a surety bond paid out of their pocket, not the city, not the public, because otherwise we're paying for their policies. That's not how it should work. They should pay for their own insurance policy the same way we have corporations that pay for their liability insurance, because that's what a surety bond is. Then if that official steps outside of his duties, we, the people, can make a claim with that insurance company, which should be available to the public. And no FOIL response should have, we searched and can't find. And I've seen plenty of those. It should be readily available to the public, because if they step outside the scope of their duties, the men and women should be able to file a claim with that surety bond to be then made whole for the harm that was caused by whatever policy that official created. Instead of running to court, filing class action lawsuits against the city paid by the taxpayers. It's a never-ending loop of lawsuits that can be stopped. There was a reason that the surety bonds were put in place. And the fact that it said that it prevents hard work from being done, that's a fallacy. Public Officer Law 14 allows public officials that need surety bond, but don't have it, to continue working until they step out of line, at which point they need to be held personally, criminally liable. Which one has actually seen that happen? None of our DAs have ever followed through on that. And if any of the men and women bring that up, it's brushed aside. under prosecutorial immunity, claiming we have the right of whether or not we're going to even look into it. Once again, no law enforcement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
you.
Any questions or comments?
The sheriff's department, again, you saying we need to get rid of the sheriff's department?
No. Just remove it from under Department of Finance. Restore it back to what it originally was, which was the enforcement for the people, by the people. They were elected for every county, right? And they actually upheld the law. We saw a small sample of it when the sheriffs throughout New York stood up against Cuomo during the Thanksgiving executive order where grandma couldn't sit at the table.
Right.
Now imagine if they're able to do that without fearing of being removed from their position because they're not going to enforce a policy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on Zoom, Mona Davids.
Unmute. Okay. Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening. Yes,
Good
we can.
evening.
Good evening. My name is Mona Davids, and I'm speaking on behalf of the New York City School Safety Coalition. I'm here this evening to ask the Charter Revision Commission to put on the ballot in November for voters to decide whether to repeal New York City's sanctuary city laws. These laws are protecting criminal migrants who are committing crimes throughout the city. These laws are protecting criminal gang members from these countries in their organized crime syndicates that are bringing drugs into New York City, running sex trafficking and human trafficking operations. New York City sanctuary laws are protecting criminal migrants who are raping children and women in New York City and other states. New York City sanctuary laws protected the criminal migrant rapist who went on to rape and kill Laken Riley. He was arrested here in New York City and he was released. And because of our laws, Laken Riley is dead and a family has lost their daughter. Parents are worried if it's safe for their kids to go to the park or the corner store. Families want their children safe. These criminal migrants are terrorizing New Yorkers and other migrants as well. Migrants living in shelters are also living in fear because the criminals they fled from are in New York City as well. Migrants that shoot at our police officers must be deported. The NYPD, corrections, and probation must communicate and release the information of any migrant that illegally walked over the border purportedly seeking asylum. Any migrant that assaults, rapes, robs in New York City must be handed over to federal immigration authorities. It's time to let New Yorkers decide with our vote if we want to continue protecting criminal migrants who have no problem shooting at our police officers and breaking our laws. It is time to put the safety of New Yorkers, our families, and our children first before criminal migrants. Let us decide in November whether we want to keep New York City sanctuary laws. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mona.
And by the way, thank you for so many times that you've come out and testified.
Absolutely.
I know everyone's busy, but we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next on Zoom, Minister Irene Estrada Rukaj. I hope I said that right.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, God bless you. New York Sanctuary City Law has to be on the ballot in November. Let the people vote whether we want New York City to continue to be a sanctuary city or have sanctuary status be removed from the city charter. Put sanctuary city back on the ballot in November. It should be repealed or amended and allow NYPD to notify immigration when illegal immigrants commit crimes. Stop shielding migrants that commit crimes. For the public safety issues, New Yorkers deserve a safer New York. We want this city charter to allow our Mayor Eric Adams and NYPD Commissioner Caban to only dictate public safety. Never should the power be given to city council who has defunded the police and created laws that have allowed criminals free access to repeat crimes. City council are not law enforcement experts. We support our NYPD officers and they should do their jobs. My two daughters are NYPD officers. One's a sergeant for the commissioner. The other one is a detective. My son-in-law is a detective. My two grandchildren are on the job now. So as a parent of an NYPD mom and to the blue, we have to stand and support our police officers. We have a duty to support them and to back them so that we can have a safer New York. Any illegal migrant assaulting any officer or any New Yorker should be deported for committing their crimes. Keeping our children is the safety net that New Yorkers have a responsibility to do. We need to close dangerous loopholes that place the city in chaos. We cannot continue to import criminals and shield them. Our city agencies must work with the federal law enforcement to weed out criminals that bring national threat. Put this on the ballot. These policies are dangerous to the residents of our city. We need to put New Yorkers first. Not only as a minister, or as a national activist for immigration, we have worked with many immigrants in New York City since 1982. We do believe in diversity. We do believe in giving everybody an opportunity. But what is coming into our city has not been vetted. And we are dealing with gangs, we're dealing with criminals, and we need to make sure that we need to put a stop to it. So I'm asking the city charter remission to go ahead and put this on the ballot in November and let New Yorkers make their choice. We cannot allow them to seek refuge, allowing them to break laws which threaten the life of New York City. It is our responsibility to take our power back. And I am asking you today to remember all 8.3 million New Yorkers who say no to this chaos that we have with the migrants. And we're asking you to put it on the ballot in November. Let us decide what we want. If we want to have New York stay as a sanctuary or to be removed, let the New Yorkers decide. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Melchis Antigua.
Question, is he speaking the microphone, then I come out?
Yeah, do that.
Buenas tardes, gracias por la
Push it up to-
convocatoria.
Put the, yeah.
Sí. Sí. Buenas tardes, gracias por la convocatoria que me hacen a esta interesante audiencia que en el portal de la cuenta que tengo con Nicha dice sobre la revisión de los estatutos. No, sí.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this hearing, this very interesting hearing. In my portal account with Naisha, I received an invitation to come here, and that this was being a revision of the statutes.
Bueno, buenas tardes a quien dirige esta interesante audiencia y a los demás integrantes. Cuestión de hecho que a uno le suceden, primero dar las gracias a Nicha por haber proveído a mi familia un apartamento, a mi señora y 2 hijos adolescentes que tengo.
¿Cuántos niños tiene?
2. Tú. Sí.
Yo entiendo todo, hablo poquito.
Qué bueno. Sí.
So I would like to say thank you. I appreciate very much what Naisha has done to me and my family. They have provided me and my family an apartment with my wife and my 2 kids.
Pienso que una cuestión que se debe corregir o poner no sanciones económicas a los administradores de los apartamentos o algo que se le haga a ellos, porque cuando uno va y no se queja, le pide que vayan a arreglar cualquier cosa, de un closet que se ha dañado, un baño que se tapó o cuestiones así sencillas. A veces no van y tiene uno que dar muchísimos viajes para ir a la oficina. Ahora mismo,
So this issue is in regards to the administrators of Naisha Apartments. I don't necessarily mean to sanction them economically, but you know, when you have issues in your apartment, such as you know, your closet is broken or the toilet is clogged, or if your apartment is suffering damages, and then when you go to the administrators and you report them these issues, there's a lot of there's something should be done because it occurs often that you have to go to the office many times.
So let me just interrupt 1 second, just to make sure he understands. So the charter revision would not be able to really do something about that. But there are people from the mayor's office here that you can speak to, and I think someone's coming here to give you her card, and we appreciate it. That would be able to follow up for you.
Entonces, esta reunión de revisión no es necesariamente tiene que ver con eso, pero esa señora trabaja con eso, le van a dar.
thank you very much. Okay.
Llámela a ella, ella es la que hace esto o lidia con este tipo de problemas,
Sí.
entonces ella es la que con la que se tiene que hablar.
Sí.
Podemos hablar allá atrás. Y dice,
Okay, no problem.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
David Turner. No, don't be sorry. This is what we're here for. You know, I've said this at several meetings, even though issues come to us that are not really related to the charter and to our commission. It's important that we use this opportunity. We have folks from the city of New York that are able to hear and hopefully follow up and get something done. David Turner, thank you, sir.
Oh, hello, good evening. I'll keep this very brief. I think it was commented at a previous charter revision commission that this is going to be the shortest charter revision since 2002, when the Bloomberg administration tried to put forth a proposal to have nonpartisan elections. Ultimately, they decided not to put forth that charter because it was deemed too short, i.e. there was enough public pushback to say, hey, we don't want to do this, it's not going to look too good. All I'm going to ask tonight, looking at this crowded audience right before us, is that there's just nothing but before the people of New York. I've been watching these charter revisions over the last couple of weeks. I've mostly heard a lot of the same people who've spoken. I just got here a few minutes ago, and I've already heard multiple people speak who I've heard in their other commissions. So my main question, not question, a comment to put forth, but just there not to be something put in front of the voters. This is a very, very important election year where there will be millions of New Yorkers going to vote for not only our sort of state senate, our state assembly and congressional, but also the presidential election. So I would just say that there not be a question put forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Frank Morano, I believe on Zoom.
All right. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Just to piggyback off of the last speaker, I want to respectfully disagree. I think there absolutely should be questions put on the ballot this year. And I think the fact that there are millions of voters voting this year, and the fact that they'll have from August until November to review whatever proposals you come up with, this is the perfect year to put proposals on the ballot. And as far as this whole theory of not having, a lot of time means that somehow the work product that you come up with is insufficient, I really take issue with that. The whole Constitution of Japan was written in something like 6 days. That's still the Constitution they use today. The length of time didn't have any correlation to how effective the governing document that they came up with was. And that 2002 commission, which I testified before that the gentleman mentioned, they came up with some very, very viable proposals in terms of mayoral succession, which the voters implemented. The fact that it happened in an accelerated time frame didn't do anything to change the fact that the voters passed those questions overwhelmingly, and we still use those today. Now, I wanted to comment briefly on the community board issue, and I appreciate Chairman Chisora making clear that the staff should look into that and that the commission is going to make this a priority. The two suggestions that I wanted to make, which I really think will serve to empower the community boards, is one, right now, as most of you know, the community board members are all appointed by the borough president, half based on the recommendation of the city council. But that city council member recommendation is just that, a recommendation. It's non-binding. What I'm encouraging the commission to consider is making those recommendations from the council member a binding appointment, so that in any given community district, half of the community board members are appointed by the council member and half are appointed by the borough president, because we have seen in Staten Island and Manhattan and probably other boroughs as well, borough presidents rejecting council member appointees. And I really think that is against the spirit of what the existing charter stands for. Additionally, I think we should look at other methods to empower the community board, including potentially that if the community board rejects a land use application and then the city planning commission considers that land use application, that it has to be approved with at least a 2/3 vote by the land use application. And lastly, in addition to the current model of appointments by the council member and the borough president, one thing that you guys may want to consider, and this is probably not going to be ripe in time for this year, but if there are future commissions, which I sincerely hope there will be, I hope that you'll put this on their agenda item list, is perhaps a portion of the community board members could be elected. Now, why would you elect an entity that is largely advisory? One, the commission that you served on in 2017, Mr. Chairman, you actually implemented term limits, or 2018, term limits for the community board. 2018. The 2019 commission was the 2-year commission appointed by the city council. The one that you served on was the 2018 commission. But the 2018 commission implemented term limits for the community board. So if we can implement term limits, I think to have actually elections would increase a lot of public awareness that community boards exist, that they can play a pivotal role. And I think just the increased awareness of these community boards would lead to them being empowered significantly more than they are now, and not run roughshod over by the developers that appear before them. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Okay, Jay Sorid, also on Zoom.
Hi, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Actually, ironically, my comments are very similar to the gentleman before. I wanted to first say that the written testimony ends July 12th, my understanding, for this this charter revision. And in terms of public engagement, I would ask if the commission can extend the period of time to at least 30 days after the community boards come back from recess. This is the single worst time that if you want to do public engagement and hear from community boards and hear from the public and everything, community boards are in recess right now. And there's people who are on land use committees, ULURP committees with the host city of Yes, who do a tremendous amount of work. They're not going to be able to give any input to this. So I think picking a few days after this after the community boards go into recess is the worst time that you could pick it. It gives the appearance that you really don't want the community boards to be part of it. Section 28 of the charter, I would respectfully request if the community boards can be elected, directly elected. There is no accountability if you have appointed. A lot of people on the community boards are political hacks. They are the friends of real estate developers. What they should do is they should directly elect it. And I'll tell you how, the way they should directly elect it is they should take the census tract areas. Community Board 9 in Brooklyn, in Crown Heights, has approximately 43 census tract areas. There's 50 community board members. If you do elections based upon each census tract area, and you have at least one, you could have 43 seats, and then you have a second round where some of the census tract areas will have a second one. That's an example of, you could do direct elections if there's less than 50 census tracts. If there's more, just pick the top ones to do it. So I would ask that in terms of the direct elections. Number two, I agree entirely with the gentleman before me. The ULURP process should have some sort of veto exactly where when it goes to the city planning, city council, there should be a certain percentage that it has to pass because there's a community board veto. Additionally, with regard to the ULURP process, what is not in the chart that most people here are aware of that's online is, but when you go to if the City Planning Commission wants to change the existing ULURP application, it should be required to go back to the community board. There's a real problem on a lot of these ULURP applications that you could basically have, it goes to the community board says, okay, we don't want it. Then what happens is the City Planning Commission can make a little change, and then the city council person could say, okay, we're going to approve something that the community board did not vote upon. So in section of the City Planning Commission rules 2-06 C1, instead of it, after there's a City Planning Commission change, instead of it simply being referred, and I'm talking about the modification of an application, instead of it simply being referred back to the community board, there should be required to be a hearing. So this way you can't have a city council person who basically can disregard the will of the community and say, listen, I didn't vote against you, I'm voting upon something different. So with regard to the ULURP process, I would respectfully ask that the City Planning Commission, if they make a change, it's required to have an additional hearing that comes back to the community board. Last thing on the fair share process, there should be something where the fair share process, there was a prior commenter who said it should include not only city run, let's say, homeless shelters for the residential beds, and it should include not just the private, but also the New York State. There has to be something that takes a look at the oversaturation of homeless in certain neighborhoods. And what goes on is a lot of Black neighborhoods are dumping grounds for social services. It affects the neighborhood doesn't like it. It reflects in displacement. Vital Brooklyn is an example how you're going to lose a tremendous amount of the population because the percentage of social services that they're bringing in is around 50%. So Brad Landers, the controller, gave a report that only dealt with homeless shelters. You have to also consider supportive housing, because when somebody leaves a homeless shelter, they go into supportive housing, and it's the same type of situation economically, where the person who's in supportive housing, it's a residential bed. There has to be a residential beds analysis that includes supportive housing from also New York State and also private on the different districts, because what you're doing is it's segregating certain neighborhoods. And they just changed, there was a lawsuit on affordable housing for community preference, where the community preference for affordable housing went from 50% to 15%. And what they should have is there has to be something that says, look, we're segregating certain neighborhoods. If the New York City law says that we require on homeless in the new buildings of 40 units or more, 15%, they should apply the same thing for the new buildings for the supportive housing, that you don't have more than 15% supportive housing, not just homeless. Because the issue is
Thank you.
in terms of economic diversity, that's the issue. And I would ask you, please extend this period of time so that you do not exclude the community boards like you're doing right now.
Well, I would disagree that we are excluding anyone. I served on a community board for almost a decade, and I was never on recess. So I think
they're all on recess. They're all on recess.
Anyone who wishes to submit testimony or come on Zoom the way you are or be here has a right to. But
there's no meetings. There's no community board meetings in the summer. We're in recess. Please don't disagree with that. That's incorrect.
Well, I disagree, but that's okay. Thank you.
In Community Board 9, when are there meetings in the summer?
It
in
doesn't mean
Brooklyn.
they're in recess. It means that people still, whether there's a meeting or not, people still can come and testify or
That's
come on
people
Zoom.
that's people, that's not the community boards. That's people, that's
Right.
not the community boards. The
But the
grassroots is
community boards, I don't think community board offices closed for 2 months.
No.
At least the one I
there's
was
no
on did
meetings.
not.
There's no meetings.
Great. We'll
Completely
agree to
wrong.
disagree on this. Thank you. Special Hagan. Special Hagan, I believe virtual.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm
Good
speaking
evening.
yet again. I'm sorry. I tend to be really interested and passionate about employment, equal opportunity, and employment law in general. And I had some, I guess, concerns about the actual office of MWBE. But one of the things I wanted to ask at first are there like agendas for these meetings generated beforehand? Like one-page agendas where we know exactly what's going to be discussed and what specific provisions of the charter are going to actually be revised? Because in this instance, when you're talking about centralizing the MWBE program, you're looking at like chapters 13 and chapters 56 of the city charter. How would the office of MWBE affect the I guess the current mandate of, let's say, the Office of Procurement or MOPS or the Department of Small Business Services? The other piece is something that I actually worked on almost 20 years ago, is the actual amendments to the executive orders, specifically Executive Order 50, Executive Order 94, Executive Order 108. These things were in place. The most recent amendment I know of was in 1986. So, I guess to have a more robust and informed conversation, I think the public should know about these specific executive orders, how they come into play, and exactly the types of fiscal ramifications of having an agency dedicated to MWBE. How does that look? What does that look like? How much money are you contemplating? How many staff persons? I'm going to be very frank. When I worked at Small Business Services, I worked on this specific thing. This is not the first time that a mayoral administration has entertained having an office of, I guess, a commission, a city agency dedicated to MWBEs. They were talking about this in 2006, and for whatever reason, it didn't come to fruition under Mayor Bloomberg at that time, and then subsequent mayoral administrations. And I think what's being lost in this discussion are specifics, and then not having the specifics, how does that play out? My last point goes to Mr. Garner's discussion of the mentorship programs and the actual MWBEs that actually get awarded. Back in 2006, even there were only a limited number of mentees in this mentorship program, and that number stayed the same for decades. And the question is, how many mentees are in the mentorship program? How has that number grown since 2006? And then what benchmarks are going to be placed with this city agency now that's being contemplated with the MWBEs? Like, the question he posed to the commission tonight that was not asked back of the commission was, how many MWBEs are getting contracts today? And then I was there asked how many of them were getting contracts back in 2006. And are they the same MWBEs? And are they politically connected MWBEs? These are the questions I think that need to be asked, and what measures are going to be put in place to ensure that the same MWBEs with the same political affiliations or fraternal affiliations are not getting the contracts over and over again. Well, thank you for your time. And
thank you. Appreciate it. So just a couple of comments. First of all, anyone can speak about anything at any charter commission hearing. So there's really no agenda because we're here to listen. So people come testify. We've had certain folks on panels throughout this time, but it doesn't matter what the panel is on that evening. People can come and speak about anything they want, and we'll continue to do that. And then
That wasn't my question. When I asked about the agenda, I was asking about like the topics that the commission planned on addressing on a given day. I understand that the
So
members.
there is no, that's my answer to your question. There
Oh,
is no agenda. We will listen to any topic that people bring up. So tonight we heard about sanctuary cities, we heard about MWBE, we heard about community boards and a couple of other items, fair share. So we'll hear everything at every meeting. So
oh,
my point is anyone can come and speak about anything they want.
oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the nature of charters. It's at least I've been on 3 of them. We've
Right.
done that on all of them. We listen to everyone's comments.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering my
You're
question.
welcome. No worries. Okay, do we have any addition? Yep, bring on up.
They don't have nothing.
Thank you. Okay, Hiba Khalil, also on Zoom.
Hi, how are you? Sorry, just give me 1 second to settle in here. Thank you so much for calling me. My name is Heba Khalil, and I'm the executive director of Engage's New York Metro chapter. It's the country's largest civic engagement organization for American Muslims. I also want to thank you so much for delaying the decision on RCV, on ranked choice voting, to allow for more research. Ranked choice voting represents a significant improvement over traditional voting, and I think it offers numerous benefits to New Yorkers. RCV promotes majority support. RCV ensures that the winning candidate has broad support and requires them to secure majority through voters' ranked preferences. And it prevents candidates from winning solely because of vote splitting among similar opponents when there's multiple people running in a race that have similar platforms. Secondly, RCV encourages more civil campaigns. Since candidates benefit from being the second or third choice of their opponent's supporter, there is greater incentive to appeal to a broader audience, and it can lead to a greater focus on policy issues rather than personal attacks. RCV allows voters to express their true preferences without the fear of wasting their vote. They can rank multiple candidates in order of preference, which mitigates the problem of strategic voting. Voters no longer have to choose the lesser of 2 evils because they can vote for their preferred candidate without fear of inadvertently helping their least favored candidate. RCV also can lead to a more diverse representation. It enables voters to support a wider array of candidates, including those from minor parties or underrepresented groups. RCV can result in a more inclusive and representative government. The diversity can bring perspectives and solutions to governance. As we know, we're very much bottled into a 2-party system right now, and RCV can at least help alleviate that by allowing many people with different platforms to run for office. Finally, RCV can result in cost saving for election administration. In jurisdictions that use runoff elections, RCV eliminates the need for a separate runoff, which saves money and increases voter participation and consolidates the election into a single event. In summary, I think that ranked choice voting strengthens democracy and ensures majority support, encourages civil discourse, provides more voter choice, and promotes diverse representation. I think it's superior to the regular way that we vote, and it aligns more closely with democratic ideals of fair and representative elections. Thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, any more Zoom comments or testimony? Anybody else here in the audience that has not testified still wish to testify? Okay, commissioners, any final thoughts before we close for the evening?
Just want to thank everyone for coming out. Please spread the word. Tell people to come out and let their voices be heard. And that way, the commission would get a better idea of what they want. It's so important that the city and the community's voices be heard. Thank you.
Just want to add to what my colleagues saying is like, please get the word out to the communities. Even if you have friends that live in any of the other boroughs, please let them know when the next meeting is, because obviously from the room, we have people who came in tonight who gave testimony, people who came out just to hear the testimonies. So the word is out there, it's just a matter of spreading it. So if you've heard about it, please share it with your friends, share it with your neighbors, share it with your families, and ask them to also come out to share. And once again, also, when we have these hearings, it's open to anyone. If you want to come and share your thoughts, your opinions, whatever you like the commission to hear from you, please come on out and bring that message to us.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Appreciate all who made their voices heard, continue to do so. It's an opportunity that we should avail ourselves of. Looking forward to hearing more as time goes on.
Thank you very much. Our next public meeting will be Monday, July 8th at the Schomburg Center for research, and that will be in Harlem. I wish you all a safe and happy Independence Day, 4th of July. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.